Hi, this is Robert with Cruzbike, and today we are going to do a front wheel removal and reinstall on a through axle S40. Same process will work on the V20C through axle or Q45 through axle. Okay, so you have a flat or you just need to remove your front wheel, no problem. The through axle actually makes it easier than the quick release in my opinion. So the first thing we're going to do, no matter what happens here, is we're going to make sure our chain is shifted all the way to the smallest cog. With our chain in the smallest cog, we will reduce the amount of tension on the chain significantly. Now, the stock derailleur does not have a lock on it where you can lock the cage open. If yours does, make sure you lock the cage open. That helps a lot. Some brands do. If you don't, you can just pull the chain off the front chain ring, especially because we have a 1x. It's really easy. There's no front derailleur or anything. Now we have a complete slack chain. We're going to remove our chain tool, which is basically just a 6mm Allen. So if you don't have this tool or you like your axle much tighter because you use a separate wrench, just use a 6mm that you have on hand. And we are going to loosen our through axle. You simply unthread it all the way, nice and easily. And we're just going to pull that through axle right out. Now, we're always going to want to be very careful of the threads with our through axle. So if you don't have a nice clean piece of ground to set it on, I suggest setting it on a rag or putting it in your pocket or setting it on a bandana or something, as long as you don't get any dirt or fine grit on the threads. So now that we've set our through axle aside, we're simply going to lift the bike right up. We're going to pull the derailleur back a little bit so we can get the chain off the cog, and there you go. Okay, now with the wheel off, if we're fixing a flat, we're going to have to do something with the bike, obviously. I always lay the wheel against my leg like this. I try not to lay it in the ground. I'm going to lay the bike on its side with the derailleur facing up. And now we can work on our wheel. We can change a flat, we can check our cassette, we can take a look at the rotor bolts or whatever we're doing. Now we're free to do that. The reason I don't lay the wheel on the ground is because you lay that rotor in the dirt or you lay the cassette in the dirt, and now you just have a real mess on your hands. All right, now that we're ready to put the wheel back in, notice I'm always holding the bike right in front of the pivot clamp. That gives me all the leverage I need, and it also keeps the front end from flopping open too much. Now I'm simply going to put the wheel back down. I'm going to line up the drive side of the chain with the smallest cog, since that's where we removed it from. And I'm going to slide that through axle right into the dropouts, keeping an eye on the rotor alignment with the caliper. And once that looks all aligned in the dropout, we can simply align our chainstay with the axle hole and insert our through axle. Now note, you have to wiggle this in a little bit because the wheel does not sit in the dropout. The wheel sits on the axle. So the dropout is just slightly deeper than the hole in the hub, depending on the hub. So if you have to wiggle it around a little bit, that's okay. That's kind of the nature of the through axle. Now once we have the wheel all the way in and we've lined everything up, everything should align just fine because we haven't loosened any other parts of the bike. And we simply use our 6mm Allen or tool that came with the through axle, thread that back in there nice and tight, store our tool back in the through axle if we've used that, pull back our chain from the non-drive side and wrap it right around that chain ring. Give it a spin, make sure everything looks good, everything looks nice. We didn't warp our rotor by setting it on the ground or anything like that. We didn't get any dirt on it. Now I'm going to shift the bike into an easier gear because I'm about ready to take off. That's all I have for this one. If you have any questions, please email us at support@cruzbike.com. And as always, happy riding.